First Vatican Council, the 20th Ecumenical Council of the Catholic Church, held great importance at the time in history. The doctrines that came forth have the same great implications today as they did at the time in the 1800s.
At various times throughout the history of the Church, councils are called where the bishops come together and start hashing out some problems and talking about what the difficulty is they're having with the institutionalized, the organizational church. Well, the First Vatican Council was the first one that came after Trent, and it was under a pope that was very anxious to establish himself as the leader. So, that man who becomes the Bishop of Rome, which is wonderful to hear that term again, the present Holy Father is referring to himself as the Bishop of Rome, has a certain central responsibility to pull the church together.
The big question is, how about reason? Can you reasonably get to faith? You can know God through reason. The great examples of that were, look at this world of ours, take a look around. This couldn't have just happened. There had to be somebody as intelligent as the most intelligent parts of this world. Well, over the last 100 and however many years since the end of Vatican I, people would say, look at science, look what science has done. Many of the arguments that were adduced in Vatican I to prove the existence of God may or may not hold that much water anymore. I think one of the things that has perdured and that you find in Thomas Aquinas is a sense that if you look within, if you begin to get in touch with your own capacity for self-transcendence, you will find a need or a want or a track that takes you along a way that says, you know what, I can imagine a condition, a situation where there are no conditions impacting my own capacity for self-transcendence. And if I can imagine of what Lonergan calls a virtually unconditioned, he traces this back to Aquinas, I can begin to understand that God might be the unconditioned one in, through, by, and about the whole of what we know as intelligible, the intelligible world, so that the world continues to have meaning. The world is intelligible, that you can rationally and reasonably get to a principle of order by going at it in terms of conditions and unconditioned, that God would be the one that you'd find as the totally unconditioned one who is at the heart and soul of the whole universe. And so I think the argument holds up. They were doing a piece back in the 1860s and 1870 that was based on deductive reasoning. What I'm arguing is that God can be known by reason, but God can be known by reason inductively. That you can go from your own experience and the experience of people. I don't think there's any question but that God can be known through revelation. Revelation's all about the revelation of one God. I don't think that's in dispute.
Infallibility was really a ticklish issue in the First Vatican Council. There were three groups who were divided on the question. One group was just gung-ho, totally for it. There was another group that thought that it had a value, but they weren't quite as gung-ho about it. And then the third group was totally against it. So they really had to hash this out. And what they were afraid of is the fact that the Pope would become too powerful. So they wanted to be very careful that they said the papal infallibility had to do only with faith and morals. And remember that the Immaculate Conception the dogma had already been promulgated. So in fact, this was just an affirmation of the fact that when a pope speaks on faith and morals, that it's gospel. And so once that was done, then you can see the impact the Vatican I has had on the rest of the Church. At various times throughout the history of the Church, councils are called because of the centrality that was given to Rome in the sense of the Holy Father. The Holy Father's power of speaking ex cathedra from the chair of faith and morals infallibly is something that is a very poignant and a very important part of the organization of our Church.
The First Vatican Council has impacted the decisions and doctrines of the Church since the Congregation. Later councils of the Church, such as Vatican II, and important papal proclamations can attribute their religious significance directly from the work of the Vatican I.